On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day, we're going to dive into SGA putting up 33 points before the back-to-back and injuries catch up to the Thunder. Speaking of injuries, three players are now out for the rest of the season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. What does that mean for the offseason ahead? What does that mean for the final month of this NBA season? All of that and more on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into the injury updates for the Thunder, what it means for the future of this team, both in this current season and in the upcoming offseason, and talk about the big things from the back-to-back set between the Bucks and the Wolves. All of that is coming up on today's show. Now, tomorrow on Friday's show will be a podcast that features your takes. We're going to be grading your hot takes and answering your Thunder questions, as well as having an episode of Stock Watch. So look out for that on Friday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Thunder on all platforms, including YouTube, for free. Every episode is free on the Locked On Thunder podcast. Excited to get going here. And the Thunder get some much-needed time off because they just have been bit by the injury bug. You play the back-to-back stretch, and now you've had Thursday off, Friday off, Saturday off, and then back-to-back set again on Sunday into Monday. But it was announced right before the back-to-back began that Lu Dort, Mike Muscala, and Ty Jerome will be out for the season. So here's the entire Thunder injury report update, and then we'll dive into what they all mean. So the Thunder themselves announced that Lu Dort, Muscala, and Jerome are all out for the season. They had successful season-ending surgery on their respective injuries. For Jerome, he had a hip injury. For Muscala, it was an ankle injury that lingered from last year. And for Lu Dort, it was a shoulder injury. He tore something in his shoulder. And so that's what happened after the All-Star break for Lu Dort. Now, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl has 1 week left from the original timeline, which we have not gotten an update on that timeline, if that's still accurate or not. His reevaluation date was set for 6 weeks from the 3rd of February. So we should be hearing something about Jerry within the next week after that 6-week timeline. Josh Giddey is still out a couple of weeks. The Thunder have not shut him down. In fact, Mark has said that they hope that they can get Josh Giddey back within this season. But obviously, you go 2 weeks from his injury, that leaves about 2 weeks left in the entire season. So we'll see where Josh Giddey's rookie year ends. Obviously, this would end his Rookie of the Month stretch, which he's gone wire to wire so far in winning in the Western Conference. Isaiah Roby was already back in the back-to-back set with that back injury, so he's back. He's good to go. Derek Favors is still out with that back injury, and Kenny Hustle still out with that knee injury. So what does this mean? For Giddey, it just means, hey, maybe he doesn't win every single Rookie of the Month award. In fact, won't have enough time in March to win the award. So that's a bummer, but it ultimately doesn't really matter. For Jerome, Muscala, and Dort, it means in this season that you're going to see a lot more of it Critchie. You're going to see a lot more Lindy Waters. You're going to see a lot more Olivier Sarr. That's all it really means. I don't worry about the long-term health of Ty Jerome and Lu Dort. Obviously, with Mike Muscala, his long-term future is more so that veteran presence than what he is as a basketball player. So hopefully this injury can get cleaned up in the offseason with this surgery that he's already had. Hopefully the rehab goes well this offseason. He's all good to go for next year, but obviously his role will not be expansive enough to really try to project his rehab timeline or try to project his future health-wise at his age. Where this gets interesting is in the offseason, because the Thunder have 3 more first-round picks, and they're going to have to consolidate something. trading 2 of those picks to move up in the draft for 1 pick, trading back in the draft, trading into next year's draft instead of this year's draft. They're going to have to do something. Or they could trade current players. And Ty Jerome, Isaiah Roby, even Lou Dort are candidates to get moved. The only players on this roster that I would be stunned that they got moved is Josh Giddey and SGA. And even SGA, you could see a path to where he'd be dealt. But in my opinion, you keep SGA, you keep Josh Giddey. Personally, I'd keep Lou Dort. But past Josh Giddey and past SGA, nothing would shock me this offseason. I can confidently say I'd be shocked if SGA was dealt. I'd be shocked if Josh Giddey was dealt. I wouldn't be, oh my goodness, Woj just blew my mind, shocked, if I get a notification in July that Lou Dort's traded to somebody else. Or that Ty Jerome is traded to somebody else. I would be shocked if Mike Muscala was traded because Mike Muscala loves the Thunder and loves this organization and wants to retire here, but that's beside the point. And I don't think that Lou Dort's played his last game for the Thunder. I don't think that it's even likely that he's traded. I just don't think that's going to be shocking if he is. I hope he's not. I think that he's a really good player to build around. I think that he's a player who provides an elite trait for a championship level team, that defensive versatility. And if his 3-point percentage can continue to look good in spots and you put him in more advantageous spots for his shooting abilities, then you've got a really, really good ball player to help you win a championship. But again, the shock factor would only hit me if it's Josh Giddey or SGA. So that's something to ponder as we move into the offseason mode, as we start to wind down with this season. And for Lou Dort and Muscala and Jerome, their season is over. For Lou Dort's contract, he has a club option for next season, and then he's a unrestricted free agent in 23-24. So next year, his club option will be, of course, picked up. It's like a $1.8 million, $1.9 million club option, which I thought that they already picked up, but Spot Track has them as not exercising it yet. But either way, it's going to be exercised. No big deal there. It'll be picked up. For Jerome, they've already exercised that option of $4 million for him. And then for Muscala, his contract is set up to where there's about a 3.5 club option on him. So it's interesting. In season doesn't really mean much of anything besides getting to see Vitt more, getting to see Lindy Waters more, and of course Sarr more too. That in itself is good because you have Waters on a 2-year, 2-way deal. So you're going to see him and get as much time with him as you can to evaluate what his long-term NBA future is like. Same with Vitt Krejci. You invested in the draft in 2022, I should say in 2020, and then you let him rehab all last year, and now he's finally ready to compete again at a high level. And they both played really well in their expanded roles. So again, these guys have been out for a long time. It's just now official that they're no longer going to be in the fold this season. No need to keep asking about them, so to say. And so we'll see how it goes from here. We'll see if Jerome, Muscala, and Dort are all back next year. If I had to bet money, I'd say that they're back next year. But again, just speaking, just solely on such shock factor, it's something to keep an eye on the rest of this offseason as we start this offseason here in about a month. And the rumor mill will start churning again and start twisting again as we look forward to what Sam Presti has up his sleeves heading into the offseason and another stepping point, another chapter in this rebuild. But again, today's episode will be about the back-to-back set. On Friday, we're going to do a special podcast rating your opinions and takes and answering your questions about the Thunder, about the NBA, and about life. So leave them down below in the comment section on YouTube or hit me up on Twitter at Rylan_Styles at RYLAN_STILES, and we will answer your questions and grade your takes on the Locked On Thunder podcast on Friday. So make sure you're over there hanging out with us on Twitter and across all podcasting platforms for free. Now let's talk about our good friends over at Athletic Greens. Folks, Athletic Greens is incredible. I started taking Athletic Greens because I want to get all that great nutrients and veggies and greens that I need to be better and help me out and change my lifestyle. That's why I started taking them. And I love their AG1 benefit of providing energy, helping your digestive system, and the way that it just simply helps you move and it helps you groove in your life. I think it's great. It's a simple product. You simply just scoop out the powder, dump it in your water, shake it up, and you're good to go. And you've gotten everything that you need. Most incorporate just a better lifestyle for you whenever you use Athletic Greens. It contains less than 1 grams of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. So, it supports better sleep quality, which we all need, trust me. Sleeping is important. It's some of the most important aspects of your life. You need help there. AG1 from Athletic Greens helps you do that. And also mental clarity. It's a great way to just start your morning on an empty stomach. You wake up, you chug some water, you chug some AG1 Athletic Greens. It's perfect. They have over 7,000 five-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes, and trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Rivas. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements that you need to take. Instead, you can just look out for your health by taking one scoop of this Athletic Greens in your water, AG1, and you're good to go. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamins and 5 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit Athletic Greens/NBA Network. Again, it's Athletic Greens/NBA Network to take ownership over your health and pick your ultimate daily nutrients insurance. I also want to tell you, we're good friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline is incredible. It's that time of year again. College basketball tournament season is finally upon us. So you got March Madness rocking and rolling from all the latest odds, contests, player props. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline has a continued source for you for all sports wagering information, including live bets on your favorite Vegas casino games on basketball, hockey, UFC, baseball, which is back. So make sure you go check that out as well. BetOnline, where the game starts. Head over right now to the website and bet on some sports. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast. On the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Check out the Locked On Now podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Now. It's a nightly recap show of every NBA game from the night before. Let's recap this doubleheader, or let's call it a back-to-back like you do in basketball, between the Thunder, Wolves, and Bucks. SGA versus the Bucks was awesome. 33 points, 14 assists, a career high, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, a block, 5 turnovers, 3 fouls. Again, playing the passing lanes with 3 steals, playing nice defense, locking in on that side of the floor, and only 3 fouls. 8 for 12 at the line, 61% from the floor, 3 for 3 from distance. Great game from SGA against the Bucks. Against the Wolves, though, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, a steal, 31 minutes of action, 13% from the floor, 0 for 4 from deep, 4 for 4 at the line. Look, I said at the top of the show, this back-to-back was whenever it all hit, right? SGA has been insane since the All-Star break and since returning from injury. He's been awesome. He really has. But he can't do it alone, and no offense to the rest of the roster, it's just been Shea. It's just been Shea. And so the injuries, the back-to-back fatigue, it all finally came to a screeching collision against the Wolves. And sometimes you just got to throw your hands up, shrug your shoulders. It happens, and you move on. You snap and clear, you forget about it. You have a memory of a goldfish, you move on. And that's what you got to do. you can't overreact to this game against the Wolves. It was a bad game for everyone involved. Not great. We kept asking, how are the Thunder competing with such a shorthanded roster? How are they getting energized and getting up for these games and not giving up? How are they fighting back whenever they get down by 23 early, 15 early, et cetera, et cetera? How is it not snowballing? Wednesday it snowballed. That's all it was. It snowballed. And now they get a much needed break, having Thursday off, having Friday off, having Saturday off. And they get to regroup. They get to re-energize themselves. It was just a blonde game, and it was a lot of things just catching up to OKC. So we're going to mix this recap. Some players did really good against the Wolves, some did really good against the Bucks. We're going to mix it all up. But one player that did really good against the Wolves was Aaron Wiggins. 25 points against Minnesota, 5 for 8 from 3, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, 47% from the floor. Wiggins shows you that 3-and-D potential. And with Wiggins, the 55th overall pick in the NBA draft in 2021, you, as you start to rebuild, first year of the rebuild, have found yourself a playoff player. What does that mean? Well, in the playoffs, your rotation shrinks down to about 8-9 guys. We'll see how Mark does in the playoffs. If he's a kind of coach that wants to go really, really short and play like 6-7 guys, or if he likes to expand it in the playoffs and cut it from maybe 12 to 10, whatever the case is. We haven't really seen Mark in that playoff setting. But with the 55th overall pick, you landed a guy who will be in your playoff rotation. If he's on the team, when this team's back in the playoffs, which we can project that he will be, he's in your rotation. He's a 3-and-D option. He is a high-level versatile defender and a really nice 3-point option on the drive and kick for SGA and for Josh Giddey and for the rest of this team. And that does wonders as you start a rebuild. Folks, this is only going to be offseason number 2 in this true rebuild of trying to build back a team, right? After the bubble, you had the deconstruction. Last offseason, you had the starting point of the build back. This time, you take the next step in the build back, and so on and so forth. And yet, you found the diamond in the rough. Plus, not to mention, at 6, you got a superstar in Josh Giddey, which looked bleak on lottery night whenever he fought a 6. Plus, you have the option and the hope that you can get lottery luck this year and draft one of the top guys. But picks like Aaron Wiggins make this rebuild process easier for the Thunder. These are the kind of breaks you need as you start to flush out a roster, you start to flush out a rebuild. And Wiggins has been very, very good. Very, very good. And it showed against the Wolves kind of what his future, what his potential is. Also, want to give a huge shout out to Darius Spacey. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. I should say 3 assists, a steal, 55% from the floor, 40% from deep. This is who Bazley should be. Versatile defender. Able to fill it up a little bit with 14 points on 55% shooting. Efficient night from him. That's what Bazley's role should be in the NBA. And over these last, how many weeks you want to put on it, right? This last stretch, we've seen Bazley fill into his role, right? Forget all the expectations, forget all the potential that Bazley had or has. The bottom line is, from all the frustration, from all the mean tweets that he gets on Twitter and about him on Twitter, and all the times I've had to defend him on this podcast, and all the times that I've hyped him up on this podcast since taking over before the bubble of Locked On Thunder, the bottom line is, right now today, he's playing his best basketball in the NBA level, and he's playing a sustainable role that you can project out. He can defend 1 through 5. He can score efficiently, and he's a great rebounder for his size. A great rebounder in general, but especially for his size. That's a valuable player. And we'll see what he can become long-term. We'll see if this is all he is. And if this is all he is, a high-level bench piece and a quality starter, you got yourself another option. A sweetener in a trade or somebody that you want to stick with long-term. Either way. You guys know I love Darius Spacey's game. You guys know that I love his potential. He's been playing really well. Again, nice role for him against the Wolves. We'll talk more about this back-to-back stretch, but first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at rockauto.com. Rockauto.com has been in business for over 20 years, serving you auto parts online for 20 years. That's right, 20 years ago, you probably didn't know how to write an email properly. You were so confused. But you could have been going to rockauto.com and finding all the parts your car will ever need. Listen, folks, my favorite part about rockauto.com is that I know nothing about cars. I know absolutely nothing about cars. But I don't have to know anything about cars. All I got to know is my make, my model, my year, and they're only going to show me car parts that are compatible with my vehicle. That way, I'm not wasting time, effort, or money on parts I cannot use or parts I do not need. It's that simple. It's that easy. Make sure you're checking it out. Make sure you're doing that. RockAuto.com. Amazing selection. Reliably low prices of the parts your car will need. RockAuto.com. Tell them Lockdown sent you in the how did you hear about this box, and they'll know what to do from there. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Go check out the Locked On NBA podcast for a national 30-minute look on what's happening around the association. We're back on Locked On Thunder, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Let's continue marching on through this. Gilgeous-Alexander, 11 points, 62% from the line, or from the floor, I should say. 4 rebounds and assists. Nice game from him. Lindy Waters was awesome versus the Bucks. 16 points, a steal, 3 rebounds, 4 for 9 from 3, 54% from the floor, and got the start versus the Wolves because Trey Mann twists his ankle. You saw Mann go down against the Bucks. Against the Bucks with a twisted ankle because he stepped on a fan in this game against the Bucks, and he was out against Minnesota. The Thunder should practice Friday or Saturday, so we're going to get an update there on Trey Mann to see about his availability on Sunday. But due to all the injuries, you saw Waters start against Minnesota. That, of course, is awesome for him. His story is so great. Remember, Lindy Waters, this undrafted guy that played at Norman North or Norman High and went to Oklahoma State and then played in semi-pro leagues in Edmond and then tried out for the Blue, made it onto the Blue roster. Then he gets a two-way deal, and then he gets a 2-year two-way deal, which is even more impressive. And he's been really good in his NBA minutes that he's gotten. And then another good stretch for Isaiah Roby. Versus the Bucks, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, 71% from the floor. Versus the Wolves, 15 points, 55% from the floor, 25% from deep, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. And he's another player that makes it very hard this offseason for Sam Presti and the Thunder. Because you have Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who you want to invest in. You have him and JRE that projects to be better than Isaiah Roby. But Isaiah Roby's still really good. And he still has an NBA role in future. Is that future in Oklahoma City is what you have to decide, because you have so many moving parts. You have such historic draft capital built up in this organization that it's going to have to be used in some way, either via a trade or via the draft itself. And when you bring in a crop of new players, you have 3 potential draft picks to bring in from the first round alone for the Thunder, somebody has to exit stage left. And that might be Isaiah Roby. And it's not an indictment on Roby because he's a very good NBA player. I've been saying it since the training camp that he was brought over. Of course, he was traded for around the deadline for Justin Patton swap to get Willie Cauley-Stein in Dallas. But I've been saying it for a long time that I like Isaiah Roby. I just wonder what happens with him this offseason. I do. I think that's one of the most interesting under-the-radar stories for the Thunder in general, because they have to, again, move somebody. This roster turnover is by no way over with. And he has that $1.9 million club option in the offseason, and then he'll be a free agent the next offseason. So how does he go about, how do the Thunder go about using him and his roster spot as this roster crunch continues? Now, let's talk about what's ahead. The Thunder are off Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They welcome in Memphis on Sunday. They have 16 games left, and their final game is on April 10th. Friday on Locked On Thunder, we're going to rate your takes. So send in your takes, your questions about the NBA, anything you got on Twitter at Rylan_Styles and in the YouTube comment section below. Make sure you subscribe for free across all platforms. It's free. Every episode's free on Locked On Thunder. We'll be back tomorrow to grade your takes, then Monday to recap Memphis, and then Tuesday to recap that second game of the back-to-back. And we'll be rocking and rolling We'll have another crossover with Richard Saman about the draft next week as well, and so much more. So until then, be good and be good to one another.